The name Jezebel often triggers associations with a biblical figure infamous for her wickedness and rebellion against God. In the Old Testament, Jezebel was the daughter of Ethbaal, the king of Sidon, and the wife of Ahab, the king of Israel. Notoriously, she promoted the worship of false deities in Israel, persecuted and executed God's prophets, and orchestrated the false accusation and execution of an innocent man. Jezebel's name has become emblematic of traits such as wickedness, manipulation, and seduction, turning it into a symbol of female treachery and malevolence in popular culture. Her story serves as a cautionary tale in religious and moral contexts, illustrating the severe repercussions of disobedience and idolatry in the biblical storyline. Jezebel and King Ahab. King Ahab, characterized as one who did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any king of Israel before him, 1 Kings chapter 16 verse 30, elevated Jezebel to the position of queen in Israel by marrying her. Notably, Jezebel was identified in 1 Kings chapter 16 verse 31 as the daughter of Ethbaal, the king of the Sidonians or Phoenicians. Prior to ascending to the throne, Ethbaal, Jezebel's father, was recognized as a priest of Astarte, the Greek manifestation of the moon goddess Ashtoreth. The Phoenicians referred to her as Astarte, and she was often linked with Baal, the sun god, who held a prominent position as the chief male deity among the Phoenicians. Jezebel's father, Ethbaal, maintained political ties with King Ahab in Israel, possibly influencing the marital union between Jezebel and Ahab. This connection facilitated the introduction of false gods into Israel. As outlined in 1 Kings chapter 16 verse 31 to 32, Jezebel played a pivotal role in influencing her husband to endorse the worship of the deities Baal and Asherah among the Israelites. During an era when kings commonly established worship facilities for foreign wives, Jezebel mandated the construction of a temple and an altar for Baal in Samaria. Being of Phoenician origin, Jezebel likely assumed a more active role than customary in Hebrew rule. Her authoritative demeanor swiftly enabled her to exert control over her husband, steering Israel away from God and towards idolatry. Throughout Ahab's reign in Israel, the populace found itself deeply divided between worshipping and serving either Baal or the Lord. The animosities escalated to the extent that Jezebel orchestrated the execution of the Lord's prophets while staunchly supporting the prophets of Baal and Asherah. Jezebel versus Elijah. Jezebel's primary adversary was the prophet Elijah, who staunchly refused to worship Baal. Elijah, in response to the widespread apostasy in Israel, declared a divine punishment, a 3-year drought. James chapter 5 verse 17. A decisive confrontation unfolded between Elijah and King Ahab, leading to a gathering of all the prophets at Mount Carmel. During this assembly, Elijah asserted himself as the sole remaining prophet of the Lord, following the execution of others, while the prophets of Baal numbered 450. Elijah proposed a test, requesting 2 bulls, one for himself and one for the prophets of Baal. The bulls were to be divided into pieces and placed on wood as an altar without the use of fire. Elijah challenged the prophets to call upon Baal to ignite the fire, while he would invoke the Lord. The prophets of Baal, after hours of fruitless invocation, resorted to desperate measures, shouting louder and inflicting self-harm with swords and spears, as was their customary practice. 1 Kings chapter 18 verse 28. When Elijah took his turn, he arranged the bull on the wood without external aid, added 12 stones to symbolize the tribes of Jacob's sons, and dug a trench around the altar. He then instructed the crowd to pour water onto the sacrifice and wood, repeating the process 3 times, saturating the altar and filling the trench. Elijah beseeched the Lord, praying, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 36 to 37. Instantaneously, the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 38. Witnessing the undeniable power of the Lord, the people prostrated themselves and declared, "He is the God, the Lord, He is the God." 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 39. Elijah then ordered the execution of all the prophets of Baal. Upon learning of these events, Jezebel, consumed by anger and vengeance, vowed to kill Elijah. Recognizing the imminent threat posed by Queen Jezebel's fury, Elijah fled to the wilderness and sought refuge under a juniper tree. Who is Naboth, and why does Jezebel kill him? Jezebel, undeterred in her malevolent pursuits, continued to manifest her wickedness in a notable event recounted in 1 Kings chapter 21, the orchestrated demise of Naboth. Naboth, a devout man fearing God, possessed a vineyard adjacent to King Ahab's palace. Ahab sought to acquire the vineyard for an herb garden, offering to enhance its profitability or pay Naboth for the land. Naboth, however, adamantly refused, asserting, "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my ancestors." 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 3. A disgruntled Ahab, sulking in bed, caught Jezebel's attention, who, upon witnessing his despondency, derided his perceived powerlessness and assured him she would resolve the matter herself. Jezebel crafted a deceitful scheme to obtain the vineyard. Falsely using Ahab's name and seal, she forged letters instigating a fast and falsely accused Naboth of blasphemy against God, substantiated by the perjured testimony of two scoundrels. The directive explicitly called for Naboth's stoning. Jezebel's Machiavellian plot unfolded precisely as intended, resulting in Naboth's execution. Upon learning of Naboth's death, Ahab seized the vineyard. Prompted by the Lord, the prophet Elijah emerged from the wilderness, confronting Ahab regarding Jezebel's conspiracy against Naboth and Ahab's own sinful actions leading Israel astray. For Jezebel's culpability, the Lord proclaimed, "The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel." 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 23. The Lord attributed much of the blame to Jezebel, declaring, "There was never anyone like Ahab, who sold himself to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, urged on by Jezebel his wife." 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 25. Confronted with this divine pronouncement, Ahab, acknowledging his guilt, engaged in a penitent response, donning sackcloth and fasting. In a display of mercy, the Lord communicated to Elijah that he would defer Ahab's judgment due to his repentance, sparing him from immediate consequences, but foretelling that judgment would befall his descendants. Ahab lived 3 more years, meeting his demise in the subsequent conflict between Syria and Israel. His son Ahaziah succeeded him but swiftly perished, succeeded by Joram. How did Jezebel die? The prophet Elisha, Elijah's successor, issued a directive to Jehu, a commander in Joram's army, instructing him to eradicate all of Ahab's descendants. Jehu first eliminated Joram and then proceeded to Jezreel, where Queen Jezebel posed the next impediment to his ascension to the throne. In 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 30, we discover, when Jezebel heard about it, she put on eye makeup, arranged her hair, and looked out of a window. Her embellishments were not an attempt to allure Jehu, but rather a display of her regal status, pride, and haughty demeanor. Jehu, looking up to the window, called out, "Who is on my side? Who?" 2 or 3 eunuchs responded, and Jehu commanded, "Throw her down." 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 32 to 33. Eunuchs, typically serving in roles assisting royal women, were likely subjected to Jezebel's cruelty, earning her no favor among them. The eunuchs subsequently cast Jezebel from the window, leading to her body being trampled by horses and consumed by dogs, in fulfillment of Elijah's prophecy. Ironically, Jezebel's downfall and demise resulted from her own pride, selfishness, and greed. While leveraging her charm and influence to secure a position in the government, she spread the worship of Baal in Israel. However, her hubris and quest for vengeance ultimately led to her demise as the Lord's promised judgment upon her family was realized.